Good morning, Chris. Another exciting webinar day. How you doing today?
Hi, Ron. I am very well and very much looking forward to diving in today. Today, we're going to be talking about search and filtering. And this is one that we really think is going to be very helpful for folks to kind of think about all the different nuances and how this is going to apply to your buying group scenario. We're going to be going into, of course, details about search and how underutilized it is. And then we're going to go into some nuances around how you can leverage your integrations and some of the workflows and concepts within your buying group to optimize for search within a buying group scenario. And then we're going to talk about filters and go into some of the kind of refinement and filtering. And really, overall, our goal here today is to help you kind of look at how you can optimize and kind of plan for your roadmap with your buying group software. So with that, Ron, do you want to dive in and kick us off with kind of an overview of search, or would it be helpful for me to kind of throw a few high-level statistics out there about search for folks?
Yeah, give us some statistics. Tell us how important this is, because I feel like I've seen so many sites out there that don't have search or don't do search well. And I would love to know the impact that can have on businesses.
Yeah, so we were talking about this before the webinar, and I would say probably the number one thing that I think most businesses don't understand is that whenever someone is doing a search, typically, and the statistics are generally it's about 60 to 70% of users, whenever they use the search, they are then at that moment ready to buy. So if you want to think about search as kind of an intent, it's basically a user telling you in general that they're ready to purchase something now. So from an analytics and tracking perspective, it's a huge opportunity. Now, here's the other interesting thing, Ron. 70% of desktop e-commerce search implementations are unable to return relevant results for product type synonyms. So if you think about it, like whenever users are searching for something, they
Yeah.
literally can type in like hammer and it will bring up not hammers in the search results over hammers.
Oh my gosh.
And I can't tell you how many times I've seen different things like that, especially for buying groups whenever we go evaluate their existing software. And just think about how frustrating it is whenever a user is trained subconsciously by using Amazon all the time and other really powerful platforms. And then they go to a less powerful platform and they find that, oh, as it turns out, I can't actually do any basic search and get any real results during the moment when their intent is to buy. They're
Right.
trained to use search because that's what works for them. It's a subconscious dopamine hit. Like, I'm ready to buy, I'm going to go search. And now it doesn't work because this site hasn't done a great job. So, of course, as you can imagine, this has been a passion for us over the many years we've been delivering for overall e-commerce and specifically for buying groups. And so, really, what we want to do is kind of talk for a few minutes here about kind of the key foundational aspects of what makes search work well. And really, at the end of the day, I would say you kind of have three pillars to this with that aspect. Number one is the data itself. And this is really something I think a lot of people overlook. But does the data that you're using actually give a capability to be able to complete a search effectively? Now, one of the
Right.
best ways that we can do this and we can kind of solve for this is number one, integrating with any ERP, PIM, line of business application. In most cases, our clients use our platform as a PIM, but really any application that we're going to pull in data from. And then the other thing is, how can we enrich that data? And this is an activity that a lot of companies don't ever get to. They have great aspirations to enrich their data and make their meta information more robust, right, Ron? It's a classic tale that we hear, but their business is to some extent so successful that it causes them to have a limiter, a throttle on their success because the foundational aspect of how they're marketing their business with these products and the product information, it has a quality limit. So we
Yep.
really want to encourage you to look at that kind of foundational element with the data. The second piece is the actual technology itself. So does the foundational kind of technology that you're using allow you to do all the things that you need done. And then I would say the third piece is the actual user interface, and how well does it kind of allow the user to take advantage of that great data and that great capability. And so, with those kind of three things in mind, I would love it, Ron, if you wanted to just talk a little bit about it, really any of those, but if you wanted to talk a little bit about that kind of search capability as well.
Yeah. So what we'll do is I'll try to bring up some screenshots so we can actually kind of really tie this in for you. So, for example, as Chris was talking about the data, the thing that's so key here, as far as the data, is can your search engine be configured to include other elements of data? So, for example, within our e-commerce platform, and I'm going to bring this up on the screen here. We had a client that came in that said, we have these kind of strange SKUs, and you can see this one right here. It's called multi, I don't remember what it is, but when the screenshot pops up, you'll see it. And they said, however, most people search by that. They have alternate customer part numbers. There's other whatever part number, and I'll show it to you here on the screen. And then there's even a Granger part number. So if I scroll down the screen here, you'll see what I did was I went into the attributes and I was able to define additional attributes for the alternate. And you can see here, I put 3 different customer alternate part numbers. I put that other part number, and then here's the Granger part number. So the great thing now, if I go back to the homepage and I paste in the Granger part number and I search, up pops that unit. That's the first thing that pops up as the related search. So when Chris is saying 70% of the people come in and they try to search for something and can't find it because it doesn't understand synonyms, that's what we're talking about. I may not call it a hammer. I may call it a ball peen hammer, but because it's an exact match, I tried to go and do a claw hammer or a sledgehammer or something like that, and it didn't match exactly. And so even though we had them, because I didn't type in the name of the product exactly matching that, it doesn't show up. So this could be competitive part numbers, OEM part numbers, synonyms like Chris calls it. I might call it a T-square where somebody else might call it, something else. So you want to make sure that it can be configured. And we'll go into some of the other things in the next slide. We're actually going to go into some of the features, and we'll show some more screenshots of how these features work. But yeah, getting the data, I think you're right on track with that, Chris. Being able to get the data, serve up the data, and then when they come in and search, being able to potentially track how they're searching so that you can figure out when they're not successful. Maybe somebody came in and searched for a widget, and a lot of people refer to this item as a widget, but we don't. But if we can see that and see that they were unsuccessful, now we can go back in and add that synonym. So the next time somebody comes and searches for a widget, it pops up, right? How do we use this data, and how do we use the results of our search? How do we track and use that to improve our business and to help those people? As Chris said, if 70% of them are ready to buy, that's the hardest part, is converting them, right? So if they come to the site, they do the search, they're ready to buy, the last thing we want to do is mess that up. So let's go ahead and pop forward and start talking about some of those search capabilities. One of the search capabilities is called Autofill Autocomplete, whatever you want to do it. I'm going to do it up on the screen here, and I'm going to demo a couple different features of that. So here's our Clarity e-commerce platform. And in the search box, I butchered the name, and I'll just make something up, JHN. But in the results, you can see it comes up and the autocomplete says, oh, well, we have some products that we think you're searching for. And you can see here, I've got a embellished jean, and then I've got some John Deere products. So JHN, they call this fuzzy logic searching, JHN is close to jean, or at least within my product catalog, Jean and John were the 2 things that were closest to that. So it's going to come up and autocomplete and say, hey, I don't have an exact match, but are these the things you were potentially looking for? And this can be very helpful, not only because sometimes people typo things, especially when you start getting into multilingual and people don't know how to spell other languages, and there's other things like that. The one I gave a minute ago, competitive part numbers. or if they put in a part number and they're off, maybe the model has been upgraded from model 350 to 351 and they're looking for 350. You don't carry it anymore, but you carry the upgrade to 351. You'd certainly like that new model to pop up and they go, oh, wow, I didn't even know there was a new model. And then you've got an option to sell. But if you don't carry 350 anymore, or you don't have fuzzy logic and you don't have synonyms, they come in and type 350, you don't sell it, they leave, and they're going to go off and look for the old model somewhere and buy it from somebody else. So to have these additional capabilities, especially autocomplete and fuzzy logic, we feel that those are two of the most important ones. Anything else about those two features specifically, Chris, you wanted to add in here before we move on to some of the other features?
Yeah, I would say for both of those, just a couple of nuances. So for the autocomplete, one of the interesting things that we do for a lot of clients is we set up not just a product autocomplete. So you'll see that pretty commonly, but depending on the type of results we get, we can present categories and we can promote the categories higher than the products, depending on what keyword matching we get. So they can see a category icon and then they can click on a category if the intent appears to be that they're looking for a category. We can also mix in site content. For example, if you've done a great job, you kind of followed some of our other training material where we talk about building out industry specific kind of niche content. So you might have a lot of meta information on your site that's really helpful for users that will kind of help them move into your site kind of higher up the funnel. Well, you might have some really great information that's like, let's say you do pool supply parts. Well, okay, if you're doing that in bulk, you might have a lot of training manuals and documents that you want people to be able to search through, but they're not necessarily directly tied to products. So how do you know what they're looking for? And typically there's a weighting schema that we can set up both for the autocomplete and for the search results. And this is really, I think, Ron, a lot of what you're talking about with just this logic, this being able to kind of fine tune and do things like the fuzzy logic with the JHN as an example. The other thing that I would say is just in general, the autocomplete and the search results can have different logic for how we present the kind of the results. And we can also do some really interesting things where we're learning about that user and what they're actually clicking on. So this is really cool. So basically you can have a feedback loop. You would typically refer to this as essentially like machine learning that's got a feedback loop based on the user's tracking data within the site. And so we have the ability to turn this on where we can track what the user is clicking on and how long they're on the page. If they're adding something to the cart, they're going to check out, all of these things. Well, we can then create a profile for what the user is actually looking for whenever they're doing a search. So this is really interesting. It depends on your situation as to how sophisticated it makes sense to be. But I would say in general, like a very, standard use case here that might make a lot of sense is you have a customer who actually bought an item, and maybe we've had some customers that have very custom vehicles that they produce, and they want their users to be able to conduct their search and filter it within a specific vehicle that they purchased. So that's kind of another interesting aspect to this is whenever you have this kind of bare metal control with the vendor that you're working with, for example, what we offer with our platform, you really can do some powerful things that help that, like you were saying, Ron, that 70% intent, whenever 70% of visitors that are doing a search are ready to buy something, we really want to be able to get them right to what they're looking for, right? So those are
Yeah.
just some interesting aspects that I think are helpful for folks.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for bringing those up. And you kind of touched on the next three bullet points, right? About the capabilities of the search bar, displaying those results, and then what resources. So, for example, I'm going to bring up one example that we did for a large stereo manufacturer of ours. They've been making stereos for, and I have no idea, 7,500 years, whatever, but they were one of the top. I remember when I was in high school, the stereo I had in my car, that was the first one I went and bought. So, thing going to the big players, and that's who we built a dealer portal for. But we customized the search results because when any one of their dealers came to this portal that we designed and built, and they had literally thousands of pieces of collateral, training videos, installation guides, replacement parts, servicing manuals, warranty repair, exploded view diagrams. I mean, they had everything for every stereo that they've ever produced over the last X years in this portal. So when a dealer would come in here to service, let's say I went in and brought in my car that's 20 years old with that stereo and it's broken and I want it fixed, they would literally just go type in the model number, and then we customized the search results so it actually broke them out, kind of like where Chris was saying we could take categories and move those to the top. In this case, we broke it out almost like a tree view where it said installation guides, and then it would show the results underneath that. And then the next would be videos, and it would show any videos under that section. The next would be exploded view diagrams, and then it would show links to that. So when they would go in and do a search on a model number, they could literally in one simple search see every single piece of collateral, video, guide, warranty, brochure, marketing materials, anything for that specific stereo. So for them, search was the number one most important feature in the entire portal, right? And that had a lot to do with obviously those last three bullets there. So when you provide search on your site, as Chris said, you want to consider the capabilities. When somebody comes in and looks for an OLED TV, are they ready to buy and you want to just show them only the TVs? Or do you also want to come up and show them the top 10 most important thing white paper on how to select which OLED TV is best for you? May that come up as the number one search, and they're like, oh my gosh, yes. Because maybe the only thing that's stopping them from buying is there's so many options. And so now one of the things that you offer, not only within that search, are all the TVs that you have. Maybe you break out all the ones that you have on sale, and you break out the one document that tells them exactly how to ensure you make the correct OLED TV choice, right? So let's move on now and talk a little bit about the different mediums and using search within the platform. Do you want to kick us off and talk about the different cross-platform capabilities and other things that we need to consider when we're embedding and using search within a platform and a site?
Absolutely. So this is a really powerful aspect of any great buying group, is basically having the capability to be omni-channel. And the concept here is making it so that it's really easy for your users to find what they're looking for, when they're looking for it, on the device that they're looking for it on. Now, a lot of our clients will use a responsive or a progressive web app type of a format to present their site, having a kind of standard interface that is desktop friendly. It's going to work well on a tablet. It's going to work well on a mobile device. And it's basically just going to run through a web browser. However, we also very much are capable of leveraging our kind of standard capability within a mobile application that will work very nicely on iOS or Android. It works well for tablet and mobile devices. And it can just tie into that same data set and that same search capability. And really, as far as the user is concerned, the main thing here is that we want to present them with a consistent user experience and a user interface. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is make it so that if they're in the warehouse or if they're at a franchise location and they need to order something, they can order it right away. They can authenticate, log in, get the search results that are specific to their account and their pricing. And keep in mind, we want to show things like inventory levels and lead times for shipment and their specific pricing all within this search. So it needs to leverage all the things we've been talking about with all the integrations and the data integrity, and making sure that it's specific to that account and possibly even that user. Maybe we don't want to show anything to that particular user for this exact product because they don't have access to that from their boss. Their boss has not allowed them to make these type of purchases. That's just an example, but maybe that's the scenario. And like you said earlier with the TVs, maybe we just want to present them with the 12 things that they can purchase for that franchise location that they've selected. Um, so whatever the situation is that you're wanting to kind of complete, we want to be able to have a consistency around how everything is presented to the user, whether it's a responsive application, progressive web application, or it's truly a multi-platform application where we're using an iOS and an Android application in addition to the web application, for example. We also can do point of sale type of things. It really just kind of depends on what you're needing. At the end of the day, though, the questions that we want to ask are, does the search information provide insight? And think about it. Put yourself in the shoes of your user. What exactly are they looking for? They don't want anything super complicated. They just need what they need, and it needs to be relevant to their situation. And they do want it to be intuitive. And so, do you use the search information to actually improve the site? And just going back to that statistic about how many people are ready to buy whenever they search and how underserved they are on most websites. So we want that experience, that advanced search capability to be true on a mobile device and a tablet device in addition to a desktop. So we need to be able to present it in a way that especially the filters and the autocomplete will show up intuitively and work across all the different devices, right, Ron?
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a great example here. I'm going to bring up a screenshot. This is a customer that we designed. Gosh, it's probably been about 8 years ago. But I remember when he called me originally, he was spending over $3 million a year on 24/7 phone support because the plumbers couldn't find the part that they were looking for on their website. He had over 50 million SKUs in his database. So we designed and built a new site. And on this homepage, you can see we provided 5 different ways for them to find what they're looking for. So up here in the header, you can see here's a part number search. Down here on the right, you can see there's a model number search. At the bottom, you can see all the different icons for the manufacturer. Up top, you can see we broke it apart, the different types of heaters. And so you could go in and traverse. And then we even had a wizard that says, you still don't know what you're looking for? Click here and let's start. And they could go through, answer a couple of questions, and we'll find their part. So in that particular case, we actually built separate and unique search indexes to provide different search results based on the piece of information the plumber had when they were looking for a part. And so again, it's, does the search information provide insight, and does the information improve the site? And in this particular case, there was too many with 50 million SKUs and so many parts. Every search provided too many results. So we started breaking those results apart. So if they were only looking for a specific model number, instead of fuzzy logic showing 700 parts that might be close to that number, we literally only had those results of the model numbers, right? So that was just one way to improve that. So now that we've done step one, and there's almost a 2-step process, and we can go back and talk about the TVs if we want, because I think that's a great one. So I go to bestbuy.com. I'm looking to buy a new big OLED TV for the Super Bowl coming up. So I go, I search OLED TV, I hit enter, and up pops, and I know they don't have this many, but let's say up popped 1,000 results. Well, now how do I pick between those 1,000 results? And that's really kind of step 2. That's now the filters. So let's talk about filters, what they are, and their purpose. Well, for me, the easy answer is it's to help fine tune or narrow my search results. That's really what it is, right? So I go to Best Buy or Fry's, I type in OLED TVs, I get too many results. I know that I'm looking for something specific. I know my Curio only fits a TV up to 50 inches. Well, then I might want to be able to go to a filter on the other side and say I'm looking between 40 and 50 inch TVs, right? Real simple. Click the filter. Now it comes down and now there's 200. Okay, well, now I know I don't want to pay more than $700 or $800. So I say, show me everything that's between $600 and $800. And then it shows me the results. And, or I can look to the side and at the right of each filter, and I'll bring a screenshot up so you can see this on one of our sites. In our platform, you can see here on any of the attributes or any of the categories and subcategories, you can see in parentheses to the right, there's a count. So if I went in and there was 1,000 TVs, then I would be able to go over to the count and go, oh, I can see that there are 43 TVs that are between 1,000 and 1,500. I can see that there's 27 TVs between 900 and 1,000 and 13 TVs between 7 and 8, whatever. I can see the results of all these categories. And so that's kind of where those filter numbers really help out, because instead of having to click and select multiple filters and go all kinds of crazy to find stuff, I can very quickly look at the left-hand side, look at my filters. For example, I've got one called genre. I added a few books to my demo site here. And so very quickly, if I open up the genre tab, I can see there's 4 books there. I can see which books and how many there are in each category of comedy, satire, whatever. And that's very easy to do with filters. So filters are what help dynamically control and fine-tune the results of your search. There are a number of different ways to show filters. They can be shown, like within our platform, filters could be hard-coded and brought in. Filters can be both dependent and non-dependent. For example, if I wanted to go buy some new appliances and I went to Home Depot or Lowe's.com online and I'm looking at appliances, am I tied only to brand? Okay, well, then I might want to go in and click on Whirlpool or Samsung or whatever the brand is that I picked, Maytag, and it filters everything out. And now I can go pick my appliance set. Or am I not specifically dependent on brand? I want to go click an attribute called stainless because I got my heart set on that Bosch dishwasher, and I know that Bosch doesn't make all the other parts. So I'm looking more for like a Viking stove and a Thermidor fridge and a Bosch dishwasher. I'm looking for really high-end stuff, but I'm going to mix and match. But I do want them all to be stainless. And so I'm going to click on a non-dependent filter called stainless, and now it'll show me all my stainless options across not only all the different appliances, but all the different manufacturers. Maybe I want to pick fridge first. So now I'll click stainless, but then I'll click refrigerators. And so I can just do that. And then there's too many refrigerators. So then I might either click a price range to buy only the high end, or I might just pick 3 of my favorite brands, or I might only pick side by side. So you can see that filters become extremely powerful when we start fine tuning and honing in on buying, right? It's like I go to the car dealer. I want to buy a car today. I need to buy a car. I'm just not sure. Do I want leather? Do I want the sunroof? What color I want? Do I want to upgrade the wheels? Does it come with tint? Right? You're fine tuning. Those are the filters. Once you get there and you test drive and you see the price difference between each model. Do I get the DX, the LX, the EX? What am I going to get? That's filtering, right? We're now honing in. I still want to buy a car. My intent's there. I searched. I did my research. I know I want a Honda. I'm at the dealership. And now I'm into the filter mode where I'm filtering through all the different options that I might want for whichever Honda I'm going to buy.
That's right.
So, Chris, why don't you jump in and help fill in some of the gaps that I've got here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the examples you gave are perfect. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is a lot of clients have worked with software vendors, in a lot of SaaS vendors, as well as, off the shelf software platforms. And one of the things that they will discover is whenever you have a substantial amount of data and a lot of filters, the performance of the search results, in particular with the filtering, can be tragically slow.
Yeah.
And this is something that I think a lot of folks may not really think about until it happens. And so we just want to encourage you to be asking that question and actually looking at real examples with the number of data points that you're considering for your search results. And so ultimately leveraging caching, in particular NoSQL caching or Elasticsearch and Redis, which we use, this has been really the answer to these kind of performance challenges, which are very real. Because think about it, if you have permutations of search results that may need to include, literally 100 different search attributes, and we've had many clients that have had, 90 to 100 custom search attributes per subcategory. So they're actually all different per subcategory. And, we need to be able to track this data to see which are actually being used so that we can have a useful user interface and we're not presenting 100 search filters, which is just crazy. Users aren't going to find that particularly helpful.
Yep.
But ultimately, we also have to show those counts and be able to dynamically update the data and show inventory and pricing that's user specific pricing. Again, doing all of that, on the fly at scale in a performant way is pretty darn challenging. So we just encourage you to think about that. The other thing that we would point out is within each category, subcategory, typically those filters, like you were saying, Ron, they're going to change. And this needs to be architected in a way that doesn't require that you and your team put literally hundreds of hours into kind of specifying this information. So ideally, whoever you work with is going to have some intelligence about how they're pulling that in from your ERP or CRM or system of record for this product data. If you're using the e-commerce platform for your buying group or group purchasing organization as kind of your system of record or your PIM, is it easy to manage like the Clarity e-commerce platform? Shameless plug. And like ultimately, the main point here is that whenever I'm going to do a search and I have that intent to buy, I want to be able to quickly filter, and every different subcategory is going to have different attributes that make the filtering work or not work. If the search filters are silly and super generic, it's not going to be helpful. The other thing that I would point out is that the users are typically going to be looking for category, subcategory specific information, but they're also going to be looking for details that might be specific to your industry. So a lot of industries will actually have kind of like a prerequisite or kind of like a kind of a representation of what somebody ought to be able to search for as a filtering mechanism. So what do I mean by this? Well, maybe you're going to set a profile for the search, or an example that I see a lot is with an auto industry search. So they'll actually specify something like what the vehicles are that we're looking for, and then the tires that come back only would match that vehicle. And so there can be characteristics of the wheels and maybe characteristics of the actual vehicle that we can specify up front. So you can almost think of this as like a wizard, like you were talking about earlier on. But this is a really interesting capability with your filtering. So, of course, you have kind of your standard filtering where you have a left or a right sidebar and you have these collapsible panes where folks can filter. But you can also have these kind of characteristics of the user and their industry. And this can be really helpful to, like you were saying, Ron, really narrow down on possibly a relatively infinite set of results that's just not that useful. So being able to do that, and then also being able to look at things like very kind of logistical oriented or fulfillment oriented aspects like inventory levels, being able to look at price ranges, and even things like how much of the container does it take up. So we may want to visually present on the page containers or packages that need to be filled and how much each of the items will actually take up. So these are just some interesting things that we want to point out with the search. Obviously, you're going to have a very specific scenario that you're going to be working against. And so we want to be able to work with you and collaborate to offer a customized and kind of catered set of recommendations. That's why we offer what we refer to as a complimentary discovery. This is a really, really cool program that we have. It works very well. We have a lot of potential clients who come to us and chat with us about their specific needs and their specific industry. And then we have a business analyst and one of our senior team members that at no cost and hassle-free will jump on the call and discuss your exact scenario and then provide you with detailed notes and recommended next steps. And regardless of whether or not we work together, we want you to have the right resources and recommendations, just like we're kind of talking about in this video, but specific to your scenario, right, Ron?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the very last tip that I'll give, and then we'll sign off unless you've got anything else, is as Chris was talking, one thing that I've seen clients do every once in a while is they'll go in and have a developer custom build out these different indexes to optimize their search, but they're manually done. So they go away from the developer, they start using the platform, and over the next few months, they start adding products, changing products, updating products. And the indexes aren't being rebuilt, and they didn't know that they had to manually be rebuilt. And so now all of a sudden, when people are searching, all of that new, fresh content and updated data is not being included in the search results. So make sure you ask that one question. That's really one of the only ones I've seen at gotcha. Is there any other gotchas? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and sign off. Thank everybody for joining. Ask you to smash that like button. Join us on our next one, where we'll talk about multi-warehouse e-commerce implementations with regards to buying groups. Visit us at clarity-ventures.com. Schedule a demo. I'll jump on a call. We'll grab a business analyst and we'll give you that free complimentary discussion. Anything else, Chris?
That's it for me. Thanks everyone for watching. We will look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks again, and bye for now.
Bye for now.